keys smell like Carl.
Alright, we're here with West Coast Disc Golf's Lakeside battle at La Mirada. This is the pro day. They're playing 2 rounds on Sunday. AMs played 2 rounds on Saturday. There's a little bit of rain late Friday night. Saturday was a little bit windy for the AMs with no rain. And Sunday was overcast for a lot of it with very little wind the first round, so you saw a lot of double digits and very little wind for the second round. This is Nick Newton from San Diego, going just about as close as you can get without actually getting it. The whole left side of this fairway is OB. You're not going to be able to see the line. That's why you're seeing a lot of stable skip shots thrown. Here's Steve Rico with his drive. Gives it another really good run. Unfortunately, somehow I missed Kyle Ekman and Bobby Music's drives. But you can see how it drops off so fast behind the basket. So Kyle got a little bit of turn out of his disc, off of his drive than he was looking for. So just kind of had an upshot. This is Bobby Music. He's a local pro, lives right across the street from the course. Real nice guy, great player. So we have everybody other than Kyle carding birdies. So, second hole has a Mandy left on one of the trees. You can see the red tape. And then the third tee is right there on the left, right where he threw at. So we have the chase card, which I'll be able to get a couple of shots in as well whenever I had the opportunity to set up for it. Steve has a little bit better of a drive. It's pretty much exactly what you're looking for. It's pretty tough to get to with the low canopy and following the mandatory. So he had a great drive, got a good skip out of it. Here's Bobby. He has a great throw, lots of good power, just on the inside of that mandatory, and his skip just went straight, didn't get much left on it, and unfortunately landed on the path, which was out of bounds. Kyle doesn't get a lot of flip out of his disc and ends up getting really stable, just as Nick did. Ends up much farther left than he was really going for.
So what kind of shot would you pull that little skateboard out for? Roller? A roller shot?
The downhill.
Here's Bobby. This is for his 3 after taking the penalty, and just a little bit short. Had a great run at it. We got Nick on his far left side, probably looking just a little shorter than Bobby's. And he gives it a great run as well. Looks like he was a little left. And Kyle, just a little short. You're going to see that a lot. It's just a really tough round for a lot of these guys, especially with putting. Steve just barely off. There's a lot of putts that these guys would make the majority of the time. They were just enough off to not get lucky on them. This hole's pretty short. It's up on a hill, and the tree sticks out enough that you're either throwing a forehand with a stable mid, maybe a Firebird, or a turnover shot with a putter. I believe all of them throw just a little turnover with their putters. There's Steve with a great drive. Kyle throws, I think it's a Sonic. It's an older type, more of a lid type disc, something with a lot of float. Kind of a unique thing that he carries in his bag just for good shots. Here's Bobby, perfect drive, a little uphill of it, looking down at it. Here's from the chase card. It's another local pro, Super Dave. Caught him throwing a really nice tomahawk with an approach shot. There'll be a couple of spots you'll see me get to show you a little extra from other people throwing in the tournament. Nick was just a little left on that shot, not enough to be able to stick it.
Weird style of this. Lots of float.
Kyle first 2. Another good putt, just a little low. We got Steve hitting his birdie. Bobby just gets a little splash out, probably hit the pole and kicked a little too hard, strong side. Kyle left his stool behind the basket, and I ran over and grabbed it for him and just happened to miss Steve Rico's drive. And he threw the perfect drive. Nick gets knocked down here a little bit, but there is a Mandy left of the tree straight in front. And you're looking for a shot just like Kyle's. Kyle's turns a little bit more, a little longer than he wanted. So it's a fairly difficult shot. I like to throw a Patriot, similar to a Leopard. Throw it out to the left and let it turn the whole way there. Then we got Nick for his approach shot. It's a good shot. It just held on a little too long, but he's inside. He's fine. Got Bobby going with the jumper. Tree probably saved him a couple of feet coming back, but I don't think it would have really mattered to him. Kyle ended up quite a bit back. We were watching him warm up for this round, and he doesn't look like he gives it a whole lot, no matter how far back he is. Steve, this is his second shot. Coming back, he had a great drive, even better putt coming back downhill towards the basket. All the rest of these guys clean up fairly easily for their pars. So we got Steve taking the only birdie 2 holes in a row. Everyone else still getting pretty close. Here, you're almost going straight out at the basket, but you have all these trees in the way, so the best shot is to throw kind of a hyzer skip shot. I think Steve hit a root, and it stopped his disc. He actually bounced to the right instead of getting that skip left. See, Nick will show you. Pretty textbook of the way you're going with it. Just want to get a big skip. Puts it right there. There is a Anheuser route here. It's just a little tough throwing uphill to keep the elevation on your disc to get there. It's a great forehand hole, but all these guys are going to opt for the big skip shot. I like to throw a glow destroyer here just so I can get a lot of skip to make up for my lack of arm to get up the hill. I believe Bobby got a hold of the tree a little bit as well, and that's what knocked him a little short. Go. Steve lining up for it. I think he hit a link. So, long putt. It's pretty close. Got Nick Newton, sponsored by Kinetic Disc Golf down in Pringle Terrace. TJ and Courtney Cruz run some great tournaments. They're putting on an A tier this year. If you happen to be around San Diego, definitely look them up and try to get involved. They do some good stuff for disc golf. Got Kyle banging in his birdie putt. Bobby making good. So after getting the only 2 birdies, 2 holes in a row, Steve's the only one with the par going into hole 5. Here's AJ Risley. He's a legacy pro, really good guy. Just happened to catch him hitting his putt. Excuse me, I believe this is actually hole 6. This is pretty straight out. Nick hyzered out a little bit more than you would want, a little too much fade. There's 2 ways to play it straight up like they're throwing it now. There is a road directly behind, so it's a little dangerous going that way. Kyle got a little too much loft, ended up OB. Bobby's going to throw it the way a lot of the AMs threw it on Saturday. You're just throwing a big hyzer shot, making sure it gets back down on the ground so you're not going long. I think threw it just a little too far out and ended up snagging on the tree, so he's going to be a little short. Steve throwing a first run Pinnacle Ghost, going straight up the middle, just a little too far, ended up in the road, OB. It's a really difficult hole to really put it inside the circle, and if you throw short, kind of where Nick is, it's pretty tough to run your putt with the road very close to being behind it. Here's Steve taking his relief after the penalty. No problem for Steve. Here's Kyle coming up, almost in the same spot. No problem for them, picking up their threes. So we got everybody taking pars there. Kyle and Steve with the penalties. This shot's either a big turnover shot, or you can play it straight up, try to get through the trees. You throw something fairly stable so you can get out there, try to get a skip going forward. Or you're going to throw a... I guess the backhand rollers there, or a big turnover. I think there was a little bit of left to right wind or headwind that ended up catching Nick's disc, and he actually hit one of the tree limbs, knocked him down early. And kind of the same thing happens for Kyle, but he put it out a little further. So we got a huge turnover that never stopped going, and he's long, long right down the hill. And Bobby's going to play it a little more straight at it. A little bit more of the local route. It's a little more dangerous, but it's much easier to really get there. It's a great shot. Steve's going to play it the same way. And Steve does the same thing. It's, plays pretty much the same line. Has another great shot right out there. They're pretty easy putts for those guys. Here's Nick for his upshot after he got knocked down early by the tree. I'm not sure if the wind's getting to him or if his putter's maybe a little bit more broken in than he's used to, but he had a lot of turn on his approach shots that definitely wasn't what he was looking for. The wind could have just been blowing a little tougher. And Bobby getting that local love. I think it happens one or two more times where he almost goes out, ends up flipping the opposite direction and staying in. Great putts by both those guys. Here's Nick coming back for his par. This is my girlfriend, Becky. She's a Legacy sponsored player. We have been running inland disc golf in the Inland Empire area in Southern California for about 2 years. Here's Super Dave. He throws over the top of these trees. He's going straight down to the basket down the hill. Really crazy shot to play up and over everything, and parks it. Not a problem for him. Peter McBride, he's on the second card as well. Doesn't have the best drive on this, but we'll watch him clean up later. Now here where they're coming towards me, it's going to take me, I think, the first two shots to really figure out how to film this. Steve actually ended up hitting that tree a little bit, kept him a little short. That hill drops off incredibly fast after the basket. You do not want to putt and get a rollout. So Nick plays it a little short. Got a little too stable too early on him, and he's kind of in a very difficult place to run your putt from there. There's Kyle. He's airing it out a little bit farther. Still in a pretty tough spot. You've got the hill dropping all the way to the left. And there's Peter cleaning up. Not a problem for him. There's a great second card. Peter McBride, Philo Brathwaite, Kyle Kund, I believe. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce the name. And then Super Dave. So there's Nick's shot, giving it a chance, more or less really just trying to play safe. Same with Steve. We have Bobby's pretty much, I mean, he sees the basket, but it drops off immediately afterwards. So it looks like he was giving it a good safe chance of a run. It's a great putt. We have Kyle. Still a long putt, very difficult to be putting at the basket like that, and he just makes it look like it wasn't a problem at all. So we got Kyle and Bobby taking twos on that hole. A lot of people here are going to be throwing just the same shot, throwing something super stable, trying to get out there and get a good skip shot to approach to the basket. You can throw the other great shots, the forehand here, something really stable, and just trying to get downhill and get a good skip. You can play straight at it. You're just going to end up dealing with a little bit more of canopy issues and, getting that perfect line. Not relying on any skip. Steve's throwing a Firebird, I believe, here. He got maybe a little too much turn or just a little bit of a late release. Disc just didn't have the chance to come back as much as he was hoping for. Here's Nick's drive. Plays exactly like you'd want to play. Maybe hung it out just a little too far, but he's in an okay spot. And just a little short. Gets on the SD rollout. Here's Philo's drive on the next hole. I'm standing up top so you can kind of get a different perspective of it. When I'm watching this lead card drive it, it's a little more difficult to really watch or to follow the disc. Steve missing just a little high. Got Kyle. Not a problem for him. Here's Bobby going for his birdie putt. And he hits a little high, but gets it to drop down. And Nick cleaning up for his 3. Steve's going to drop in for his 3 as well. Here's Philo after his drive, putting for a birdie. So this is after 9 holes. We have Steve and Bobby tied, with Nick ahead of Kyle by 1 stroke. You can kind of see Bobby got a great shot up there, a little to the right of the basket, about pin high. Here's Kyle's drive that stayed a little more stable. You're either looking for a more turnover shot to get closer to the basket or to stable out and be above the trees. Here's some of the antics between waiting to throw and waiting for everyone else to tee off. Steve throws a perfect drive right there, right in the roots, looking directly up at the basket, probably 15 feet away. We have Nick's drive. He ended up taking the stable route, got probably a little stable, a little more early than he wanted it to, ended up left. Gives it a good run going for it too. That's Bobby taking another 2. He seemed to be the only one on the card who doesn't have a real tough time at some point. Steve just a little bit left. But Bobby played very consistent the whole way through. The other 3 guys on the card each had some points of up and downs for all of them. Kyle missing a putt he'd normally make. He comes back, no problem, takes his 3. This is Nick coming back for his 3 putt. And just a little low, maybe a little scared going for it from there. But we have Bobby taking the only 2 with Nick taking the bogey. This hole's a lot more difficult than these guys make it look. It's uphill pretty fast. It's steep quickly. And then you have to go another 100-some feet after the top of the hill to get to the basket. There's another local Southern California pro, Wally Moore. He's getting harassed by these geese every time he turned around to putt. They'd go chase him to look in his bag for breadcrumbs. So we're trying to film him for a possible meltdown over the geese. Here we have Bobby just throwing a perfect shot. These trees don't look incredibly difficult to navigate. They're just far enough out there. Trying to pump out a long shot like that and keep it low enough after getting over the hill can be pretty difficult. Steve looks like he's throwing an Aqua Rampage. Very stable, very fast disc. He gets it just a little high, a little too high, ends up snagging on a couple leaves or a branch and gets knocked down. Nick throws a great shot as well, just barely keeping it low, and I believe he probably hyzered out a little earlier than he had wished. Kyle's first 2, I missed Steve and Nick's second shot. Steve had an upshot. Nick was a little far out with an upshot. So there's Kyle taking his 3. Steve with his 3. And here's Nick coming back for his 3. And we have Bobby, who's absolutely parked. I think I'm going to show the scorecard right here. There's a little hold up, and he's got 5 birds in a row. So right now, 5, 6, he's sitting 6 down. Absolutely killing it after 11 holes, with a bogey even. This next hole, the large palm trees on the left side, it's past those just a little, and on the right, another very death putty type of a shot. Super Dave throws a great shot. He throws it up so it stalls and will stop right on top by those palms, or you're trying to throw this long route on the right side so that you're putting up to the basket instead of looking down at another death putt. Here's Nick. It's going to be a great shot. It just floated a little much on him, a little high. Gets knocked down early, so he's going to have kind of a tough looking approach shot with the hill. Kyle throws an amazing shot. He throws it high over those trees, which is not easy to do. Throws a little nose up, so it just stalls, comes right back, and I believe he's looking about a 15-footer. Steve takes the low stable route on the right side. Has a great shot. It's exactly what you're looking for. It's not going to leave you an easy putt, but you're at least looking up at it. Now you can see how long it is after those trees to the palms and then the basket. So Nick had a fairly tough luck getting knocked down, and then a tough up shot, which ended up short. This is Erin White. She's a Southern California pro from Pasadena. She just had an awesome up shot I was able to catch. And you can see how tough Nick's shot was from his up shot. Wasn't quite enough. This is Steve's second shot. Just hit the basket, and he rolled out quite a ways. You can see just how steep that is, how fast it drops off from the basket. It's not uncommon to play here and roll all the way to the sidewalk. So he gives it a good chance coming back for a 3, but he's going to unfortunately end up carding a bogey on this hole. But Bobby coming uphill, it's a tough angle to be aggressive on, so he may have just been laying up there to play safe. Got Kyle looking straight off a cliff almost, and just not a problem. That's a pretty impressive 2 on this hole. You're not going to see a lot of birdies. Nick, he was starting to have a pretty rough time. He shot 12 down, I believe, in the first round. So he's a great player. I think that ended up being a 1063 rated round. And was just having a tough time getting it to really put together for him. Tough luck having lines just not work out for him very well. So we had Kyle ending up with a birdie there. First up on the tee pad, there's 2. It's a double Mandy. You have to throw straight up the middle, and you can't quite see the basket. You can see where everyone's standing down there straight out. It's to the right of them. Bobby throws a great shot. It turns a little too hard on him, so it's going to come short.
What you're going to do?
If me and them got sponsored by Oakley,
Here's
they want them to have make us hovercraft so we can race them.
This is Kyle Ekman's caddy.
Why don't you just get a golf cart?
Because
It's too much work.
So anyway, Steve has a great drive. Throws it awesome. Is able to stay stable enough to go straight. It's a really tough hole to actually put it inside the circle. You're throwing the Anheuser on a downhill with low canopy. Nick and Steve had just absolutely great shots that put them very close.
He's really small.
This part can get fairly busy. You see
Couple
lots of shots play right along the road. There's geese all over the place. It's pretty popular. There's Bobby giving another great run. It's a long runner at it, and he gave it a chance to go in. This is Nick's second. Pretty clean up shot, no problem. Now, there's a decent wind coming across here, so Kyle gave it a good chance to stay underneath and bite straight at it. This is Steve for his 2.
Go up.
And it just hits an awesome putt. Dead center pole. That's great. It's a long putt. Then everybody else just cleaned up easy for their pars. Steve carding the only 2. This was a long drive. It's uphill, and you got to fight through a couple of trees. Steve got out a little earlier than he wanted to. He wanted to go outside those trees, but he's still inside the circle. Those 2 small trees that I was just zoomed in on, it's right in the middle of those, probably 20 feet out from Steve's. Kyle let go a little early too. Unfortunately, it was also high, so he ended up stabling out a lot more than what he was looking for. Bobby ends up with a great drive. He puts it out wide, just as everyone was trying to do. Still had enough air underneath it that it carried a little farther left than he wanted. Nick goes for the big turnover shot. Definitely some wind in play here. Ends up chunking off that tree and ended up quite a bit short. This is the next hole. Right after you finish 14, you're going to go up top and throw it back down. So this was Super Dave, and got a little more stable than he wanted. It's a pretty tough hole to actually throw. There's such an elevation change with the wind. Nick throws a perfect up shot. It's going to have an easy 3. There's Kyle for his 2. Just off. A couple more inches on a lot of these putts would have been the difference pretty much all day. This is Steve for his birdie. And it's just a little weak side. It's not enough. There's Philo. Ended up catching Philo. Putting in his birdie on hole 15 coming down. This is Owen Scoggins, another Southern California pro lady. It's a long putt. It's a great run. Almost got one. So everybody took pars there. Throwing down here, I believe this is Steve. It's a great drive. It's tough to get your disc to really drop and continue going straight without turning one way or the other. So Kyle ended up a little farther to the right. Here's Bobby with his drive. Let's see. Bobby had the best drive of the card. Ended up getting it farther, just past the pin and staying a little right. Nick's shot's going to hyzer out a little bit. Gets a little more stable. It's not a lot of room off the tee pad to really work with. So here's throwing hole 16. This is Philo. He has a great drive going uphill. It's another one of those holes that's much more difficult than it looks. It's uphill. It's a long shot. Here's Pete with a great drive. I believe he's inside 20 feet. And then here's Super Dave. Guy gets a nice little flip on it. Gets nice and stable at the end. And there's a sidewalk long there. I'm not sure if he ended up out of bounds. I know he took relief from it, but I'm not sure if he ended up with a penalty stroke. Here's Nick with a long approach shot coming back on 15. This is Kyle for his birdie. Gives it a good run, just a couple inches. Couple inches off on a lot of these guys, just having a rough time being able to really put it all together. And Steve just going straight over the top of that. We got Bobby, just putt consistent the entire time, banging home another birdie. We got Philo. I believe I catch all 3 of these guys on their putts for this hole. Yeah, and here's Super Dave. I know he took relief out, but like I said, I'm not sure if that was for a 2 or for his 3. But that was a great putt. Steve ended up missing his putt coming back as well and took a 4. So you have Bobby with a 2, Kyle and Nick taking pars, and Steve with the bogey. Bobby throws just a bomb here, throws past the basket and is up the hill. You just don't see very many people throwing that. Kyle throws a great drive here as well. Yeah, ends up kind of like where Peter McBride was. There's Nick's shot. He gets a nice turn out of it. Just doesn't hook up soon enough, and he ends up drifting a little bit further downhill. And I missed Steve's drive, but he ended up pretty well. He'll see him. I got his putt. Nick gives it a good run, just a little short. It's pretty tough coming uphill on that. It's really steep. And Kyle just off by a little. It's a few inches for Kyle all day long. They all seemed maybe a little short. Steve's able to put one in, get rid of that bogey on the previous hole, and Bobby still just playing automatic. So we have Bobby and Steve taking 2s, and Nick and Kyle taking 3s on that last hole on 16. 17's another downhill hole. You want to get a little bit more turn. Bobby's gonna end up a little higher than you want to on the hill. Steve's throwing a gauge here and just releases too late. Ends up getting caught up in the tree and knocked down. I like to throw either a pinnacle ghost with a little bit of a turn, or something like a stable patriot to get out there and come back in on the hill to stop it. Kyle had a great drive there, a little bit uphill on it, and I believe a few feet past the pin. Nick throws a great drive. He just gets a little extra loft out of his disc that pulled it up, and he ended up going a little long. Here's Steve with his upshot.
That's what happens when I throw it.
Ends up just above the basket. I missed Bobby's approach shot. He just laid up. Here we have Nick coming back for his 2, and the wind, it looks like it's going straight at him, so probably got a hold of it, picked it up a little higher than he was anticipating. Even Kyle hit a little high, able to stick it in though. So you have Kyle taking the only birdie on the hole. It's going into 18. 18's coming straight back up the hill. Kyle's got a pretty impressive forehand to be throwing that. It's a long ways to be able to carry uphill. Bobby throwing up the hill. All these guys have fantastic drives on this 18th hole. The hole is normally not this long because of the kids' playground and all the people. It's generally in a much shorter position. So it's nice to be able to get out and play this in the difficult position you don't get to see as often. Same with hole 1. We don't normally tee off from such a danger spot. There's Nick just adding to the collage of great shots. This was a great tournament. It was a lot of fun for the AMs on Saturday. Ran really fast. It was put together very cleanly. The pros played incredibly quick, and it was over very fast. If you guys are in the Southern California area, you're looking to play any tournaments, definitely look into what West Coast Disc Golf and Jeff Spoor are doing. They're great guy. He's a great guy. He does a lot of good work for disc golf. And if you're in the Southern California area and you haven't heard of us yet, we're Inland Disc Golf. We try to get around, play as many courses as we can. We run our weekly and small tournaments in the Inland Empire, Riverside, Glen Helen, and Chino Hills areas. So if you're around, look us up. Check us out on Facebook. Here's the final scores. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.